Hello, my friend, and thank you so much for tuning into the Peaceful Prosperity Podcast. I am Oliver Manalesa. I'm a lifestyle business coach. I've been helping entrepreneurs eradicate spiritual bankruptcy since 2012. And I'm really excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a little bit since we've been here together. This podcast has evolved over the many years with different interviews and guests and different types of content and clients sharing their success stories. And I've been away for this little while. And a big part of the reason is because I've been intensely and intentionally focused on writing my first book. So after many rewrites and many moments of burnout and many days and weeks not knowing when there would be light at the end of the tunnel in this extremely meaningful and worthwhile but isolating and challenging journey of writing my first book, I'm proud to announce that it is finally complete and it is available for you to purchase as a digital book, as an audiobook. The book is called The Daily Prosperity Method: How to Expand Your Capacity by Owning the Day. And a big part of the reason why I wrote this book, beyond the many years of wanting to put together a toolkit of the foundational principles and practices that have helped many of my clients over the years transform their lives and their businesses to align it with more meaning, purpose, and impact. Beyond all of that, I wanted to create just this toolkit that teaches us about how can we create a sense of abundance and a sense of opportunity and openness and gratitude and a feeling like we've moved the needle on the things that actually matter to us on a day-to-day basis. That's why I called it the Daily Prosperity Method, because so much of our lives and our minds are consumed with getting to the next place, trying to find that sense of fulfillment and achievement at some future point when today is literally all we got. And I believe that when we are purposeful and we are mindful and we are operating at the highest level of ourselves, that we can actually make the most out of each day in a productive way. And for the rest of the day, we can actually just enjoy it and appreciate our husbands or wives or kids, our families, time in nature, time for the other things in life that matter to us, because it's not all about work. It's not all about business. But then again, the reason why the subtitle is How to Expand Your Capacity by Owning the Day is because so many clients over the last almost 12 years, they come to me wanting to pursue more purpose and more meaning and more impact in their lives and their businesses. And with that are some incredibly deep and powerful questions. There are some really uncomfortable choices to make. And for the most part, when clients first come to me, they don't have the mental bandwidth. They don't have the capacity to even entertain some of these difficult questions and uncomfortable choices. So a big part of the first thing one of the first things that we do is to expand your capacity, to tap back into your personal power. One of my clients says it really well. He says, the first little bit of our coaching was all about untangling the messes. And that's really what it is untangling and taking care of the messes in our lives so we're freer and more empowered to take on the next most important problem in front of us, the most valuable opportunity in front of us. And expanding your capacity by owning the day. What does owning the day mean? That's about taking control over what you can control, learning what you need to actually take control of so that you can do the right thing at the right time, so that you're approaching your life and your business from a place of, I am taken care of, and I'm energizing and unlocking my potential, and I'm aiming that potential at the most relevant problem and opportunity in front of me in my life and my business. So every day, for the short window of time where I have the power and the wherewithal to actually move the needle, I do so. And then with the rest of the day, I could actually relish and savor the present moment, to have time for fun, to have time for play, and to have, to experience the freedom and the flexibility of available in this moment. So that's really a big reason why I wrote the book. It is for the entrepreneur, the high achiever, the high performer who wants to have the best of both worlds, who wants to have a great life as they pursue the goals and the milestones and the projects that are meaningful for them, that call out the best inside of them, that taps into their gifts. And so as I guess as a gift from me, I'm really excited to share with you the opening of my book, The Daily Prosperity Method, with you here on the podcast. And it really opens up with it opens up with my origin story. This section is called How I Got Here, is how the book opens up. So you get to hear a little bit about what my journey has been like. If you're not familiar with my background, I started off in University of Toronto studying political science, and I realized that I had this long-time dream as a child to be an entrepreneur. And when that part of me woke up again, I discovered the world of real estate investing, and I ended up starting my first business at 23 years old. And you get to hear about how after just a few years of growing that company, I actually was under investigation. And so that's a really interesting part of the story that I'm not sure I've shared in too many places. So what was that like to be under a microscope, and how did that turn into a downward spiral for me, and led me to realizing just how spiritually bankrupt I was, and how it led through to this, dark night of the soul, to reinvent and rediscover myself and my calling as a coach. And so I'm really excited to share this part of you, so you get an understanding of, the context behind so many of the lessons that I teach, and the stories that we go through in the book, and the exercises that we go through in the book. And I'm really honored and really proud and gratified by the finished product of this book. And if it's something that you enjoy, this free sample, if it's something that you enjoy, you want to purchase the digital book and the audiobook, you can do so at olivermanalese.com/DPM. I'll also make sure that link is available for you in the description of this episode. And I would love to hear from you what your thoughts are, what your feedback is, and how this episode and how this first the opening of the book actually lands for you. And that is it. Coming up is the opening of my book, The Daily Prosperity Method: How to Expand Your Capacity by Owning the Day. Enjoy. The Daily Prosperity Method: How to Expand Your Capacity by Owning the Day, by Oliver Manalese. Quote, "This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. The being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch, which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." End quote. George Bernard Shaw. Introduction. How I got here. Quote, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." End quote. Albert Einstein. I escaped my mom's womb, probably because I craved freedom. My mom famously recalls, "You broke 2 strollers, 1 playpen, you split a crib, and ate the foam of the mattress." Clearly, nothing could hold me down, even if it meant chewing up and spitting out pieces of a foam mattress. My parents immigrated here from the Philippines and worked their asses off to get established. I can't fully express how grateful I am for how much they sacrificed to be able to provide a safe and loving 3-bedroom home to grow up in. Me and my 2 siblings were lucky enough to share and be raised in that home, not just with our parents, but our grandparents and our 4 aunts. I don't know how, but at one point, there were up to 13 of us under the same roof. And with the lack of physical space at home, as a young boy, I escaped into my own inner space. One where I dreamed that someday I'd make it as a big musician performing on stages around the world, or as an artist with my own creative studio space. But my ultimate dream was to become an entrepreneur wealthy enough to buy myself a mansion. When I started school, I enjoyed the high of getting top grades, the leadership I got to experience in student council, and the fun of being able to express myself artistically by performing in school plays or singing in talent shows. I had many dreams about the future that involved leadership, performing, and doing what brought me joy. But as the years went on, I began to lose touch with that part of myself. The dreams I once had were replaced with teenage distractions and limiting beliefs. Music became about getting girls to like me, rather than creative expression. Leadership roles became more about being popular with my peers, rather than making a difference. Good grades became about getting into the same prestigious schools as my friends. Whether it was my friend circle, teachers, or parents, my dreams got left behind for the paths that were laid out for me. A part of me felt called to go to performing arts school, or at the very least, go to school abroad. But my mom was concerned about the high cost. Fast forward, and I'm 18, aimlessly attending the University of Toronto, Mississauga. It was their campus in the suburbs, and a mere 10-minute drive from home. I was majoring in political science because it was the closest program that made sense with my desire to affect change and be a leader like my past successes in student council. And much thanks to my awesome uncle, I landed a part-time job at the local automobile manufacturer, a major selling point for staying local. With a steady job and school so close by, it was easy to shut my mind off and run on autopilot toward that degree, all while I made $35 an hour at 19 years old. And with time and a half on Saturdays and double time on Sundays, I brought in $800 to $1,000 working 2 or 3 days a week. Compared to my peers working minimum wage jobs, that sounds pretty great, right? Well, if you saw photos of me from then, I was 40 pounds overweight, had no life in my eyes, and never smiled. Why? Because I was climbing someone else's mountain, and it robbed me of my aliveness. But as numb and disconnected as I was, my subconscious was slowly gathering intel. At first, it was noticing things at school, like my peers and my professors. The fixation on grades, climbing a corporate ladder, or working for the government became less and less appealing. One professor inspired thoughts of becoming a teacher, but the university environment seemed confining. Slowly, I came to realize that the goals or life paths of those around me had zero resonance for me. Then it was the assembly line. What struck me were the PhDs, engineers, and highly educated coworkers doing repetitive factory work. Many of them were miserable, but chained to this job to maintain their comfortable lifestyles. My inner observer was reflecting on all the things you're supposed to do. Go to school, check. Get good grades, check. Get a good, stable job, check. The result of that default life path was playing out right in front of me. I saw the bigger picture and how none of this would make me happy. Then my inner child erupted from its slumber. It woke my ass up with a resounding, "Oh, hell no." Waking up. This overwhelming sensation came over me like, where have I been this whole time? Truth is, I'd been mentally checked out for years. Then it sank in. I was fat, sad, and most of all, angry with myself. I lost years trapped in someone else's dream that it became a nightmare. On top of that, I had zero examples of who I wanted to emulate. Podcasts and YouTube weren't a thing yet. So instead, I fell into the rabbit hole of books and audiobooks. I quizzically roamed several sections at the local bookstore. I was drawn to self-help, entrepreneurship, spirituality, philosophy, mindfulness, and real estate investing. My mind was starved for knowledge. I'd crush 2, sometimes 3 books a week. And you would think I'd tire out, but it only fed my hunger to learn. 2 major realizations occurred to me. First, I realized that when I'm genuinely interested and it's my own choice, I love learning. If it's forced on me, like in school, I resent it. Second, it reminded me that at 13, my ultimate dream was to become an entrepreneur. This process of remembering who I was felt like I was reviving that young Oliver who had big dreams and aspirations of being a rock star business tycoon with a huge mansion. Untapped potential. Immediately after these realizations, I began to reallocate my generous paychecks towards health programs, organic food, and supplements that would help me get stronger and healthier and lose 40 pounds of that extra body weight. As my body got leaner and more capable, my mind had a greater capacity to acquire knowledge and put it into action. I also began investing even more time and money into educating myself in the form of higher ticket seminars and workshops. These helped me get to know myself and what I wanted. I was getting initiated into a world obsessed with growth, potential, and personal freedom. Though this didn't come free of painful and costly missteps along the way. I got burned a few times. I lost a few grand on a pyramid scheme once. Hopped on and off a few multi-level marketing bandwagons, ranging anywhere from travel and greeting cards to personal care products. I made and lost a few fake friends. These brutal and costly lessons helped me spot and avoid not just the hype trains and pitch fests, but anything that didn't feel aligned. Seeing what I didn't want helped me discover what I truly wanted for myself. I eventually landed in an environment that felt like home. It was a reputable real estate investing community with thousands of members across Canada and a decades-long track record of results. Here I was surrounded by actual entrepreneurs and investors doing deals, building businesses, and making shit happen. Finally, I began seeing people living in a way and doing work that I could see myself in. Finally, the teachers on stage had integrity and helped their students produce real results. I still remember how they'd open up each monthly meeting with a line of people at the mic sharing their wins. I'd be uplifted hearing people share their first, 12th, or 30th deals. This tribe was legit. My path as a real estate investor began to solidify. Swallowing the red pill. What happened next was like beginning to see the Matrix. After being self-taught on a variety of topics, I suddenly saw the trap of 9 to 5. I saw the fatal flaws of the deferred life plan. You know, waiting 30 years to enjoy life when God only knows how much time you have on earth. I saw how broken the financial system was, and that entrepreneurship was the main way to own my path. I saw how broken politics was, and how it distracted me from taking control of my life. I found myself questioning everything. This was destabilizing, to say the least. Eventually, I saw that business ownership and investment real estate was my way to break free of these constraints. Just like chewing my way through a foam mattress as an infant, this was my way to create the most freedom possible. Visions of the future were sparking up in my mind's eye. Thoughts of being able to do what I want, when I want, and wherever I want brought me back to life and back to my true self, my inner child. I began to feel that spending the next 2 years completing my degree and working at the assembly line was robbing me of precious time. I didn't want to miss out on one more day where I wasn't growing as an entrepreneur. Much to the dismay of my once proud parents, I quit my steady, high-paying job and dropped out of university. It was the first of many shocking changes in life direction that my parents had to endure throughout my 20s. Sorry, Mom. Becoming a corporate cog. Through my self-study, I saw that learning sales, relationship building, offering a service, and generating revenue was crucial for my future as an entrepreneur. So at 21 years old, 2 weeks after dropping out, I got an entry-level job and moved up the ranks in a large recruiting and staffing company. I went from data entry to inside sales and then to outside sales. I had the experience of helping launch new divisions and territories, which fed my hunger to learn. But as much as I wanted to be creative and think outside the box, I kept hitting a wall. The corporate environment had a hierarchy, and the meticulously defined roles constrained my desire to expand my learning experience. Luckily, my friend took notice of my new skill set and invited me to join his one-person staffing company. It was super niche and specialized in recruiting truck drivers. When he hired me, I went from being a cog in the wheel of a big corporation down to an entrepreneurial, now 2-person operation. Igniting the entrepreneurial spirit. It was the perfect contrast. I got to see and be part of everything. From the marketing, messaging, offering, pricing, fulfillment, and delivery, I had a say and had my hand in all of it. For perspective, the Great Recession was about to hit, and I spent my first day on the phone laying off 20 truck drivers right before Christmas 2007. The market collapse didn't stop us from eventually turning things around and expanding our services, clientele, and profitability. In the middle of this all, at 23, after years of being wantrepreneurs, my best friend and I officially launched our first business. When we first met, it was because he saw one of my I buy houses ads online. He called me expressing similar interests, and we hit it off from there. Our hangouts from then on were supercharged with our visions of real estate investing and financial freedom. It wasn't long after that we spent almost every day together, dreaming up new ideas and exploring all the different strategies we could implement. Things finally came together when we launched our real estate investing company, specializing in rent-to-own, which we called the Rent Busters. Simultaneously, I got licensed as a real estate agent so I could facilitate all our transactions. Fortunately, my friend/boss gave me tons of leeway to work my schedule. This gave me the flexibility through the week to look at properties, take meetings, and try building momentum in my business. I soon realized a critical factor though. My sales and business growth energy was being used up in his company, not mine. I had little bandwidth each day for my own venture. Full circle. Then, months later, the day finally came. My friend/boss had brought in a new partner who filled his seat and became my new boss. One morning, she called me into her office. "Oliver, you're great and have done a lot to help us get here, but we're so new and need people dedicated to us. We're excited you're so passionate about your side business. We think it's best you move on from here and go do that." From my first day on the job, letting go of 20 truck drivers, to my new boss who fired me on her first day on the job, my time there went full circle. Praise God. For months, I contemplated when the right time would be to go off on my own. I did the mental gymnastics of what it would take to replace my income and fantasized about the perfect time to quit. But while I was busy delaying, she did what I was afraid to do and fired me. Sometimes, if you're not willing to do it, the universe does it for you. I still remember walking to my car, grinning from ear to ear, saying to myself, I will never work for someone again. And I haven't since. From nothing to something. That same morning, I met up with my business partner and went straight to work on my business. For perspective, in the first 6 months, while I was splitting my focus between my job and my business, we did 0 deals. The first 3 months, when I was finally full-time, we closed 9. We packaged them up, sold them to investors, and collected the fees. On top of that, I'd act as the real estate agent on each deal and earn commissions on them too. We even began joint venturing into a couple of the deals with 0 of our own money. I can't fully explain the satisfaction I felt in turning what was a mere idea in my head into a reality. I proved to myself that I had the capacity to create something out of nothing. It was an inspiring start for a young entrepreneur. My days were finally filled with what I'd envisioned for years. It was 2009, and I loved working from anywhere at any time before working from home was even a thing. I'd fly solo or be with my business partner as we'd mastermind strategies for the business at coffee shops, in the backyard, or at a park. During the day, we'd hit the road to build strategic relationships. We'd host talks educating real estate professionals about what we do. This was when blogging was huge for gaining credibility. We took pride in the fact that we were one of the only rent-to-own companies that were completely transparent and educated people on what we do, whether it was on social media, our blog, or YouTube videos. This would end up biting us in the ass, but more on that later. In the evenings, we'd be on the phone with leads, analyzing deals, and facilitating transactions together. We'd dissect each step of the process, to elevate the entire customer experience and stand above our competitors. Celebrating wins. A major highlight was that whenever we'd close a deal, we celebrated. We'd hit our favorite Indian or sushi joints. We'd take our favorite investor clients out on epic lunches to places like Canoe, a high-end restaurant in Toronto. On even grander occasions, we held a team wellness retreat at the Scandinave Thermal Spa up north, where we'd get massages and decompress in the hot pools and cold plunges. I even remember one time withdrawing a couple $1,000s for each of us to cross the border and do a fun shopping spree at the Buffalo outlet malls to celebrate. It felt cool to make money and celebrate what we had only imagined just years before. By 2011, we were building a strong reputation, and word began to spread. We were implementing innovative systems to help us complete more deals while working much less. By this point, we jointly owned 4 properties with investor partners. We attracted higher-level investors with pockets big enough to acquire nearly all our deals. We built referral partnerships with real estate and mortgage pros that fed us the bulk of our leads. We were on a path to becoming great at this, and we're on track to 10x in the years to come. We were exactly where we wanted to be. Yet something was missing. Beginning my descent. It went from starting a fun business with my best friend to now building a serious business with someone who I was now only seeing as a partner. Every phone call and coffee date was work-related. Every interaction had to be optimized. Every minute needed an ROI. Ugh. It all began to wear on me. What was once a passion-filled project, where I got to play with possibility, turned into an all-or-nothing game where there was never enough. I tried everything I could to reinvigorate the passion and inspiration I had in the beginning. I read the latest books and attended countless seminars to recapture my past excitement, and it would work, temporarily. But in a week or two, I'd be back where I was, feeling empty, lost, and thinking something was wrong with me. The road to spiritual bankruptcy. I could see what the next 30 years of my life would look like, constantly setting and achieving bigger versions of what we were already doing. More deals, bigger deals, better investor clients. As great as everything started to look on the outside, I couldn't help thinking to myself, is this all there is? As I look back, it's clear I wasn't fulfilled. There was a lack of meaning. Each time we set and achieved a new, bigger goal, it never left me feeling satisfied or proud. It never made a difference. A part of me was hiding. I wasn't fully showing up. Something told me there was a greater purpose for me and my gifts. But for the longest time, I thought this was my purpose. For years, who I was my business. Everything else, like relationships, health, and family, were all secondary. I had no capacity for meeting and dating girls because my mind was all business. I'd still work out, but because I was always on the go, I'd feed myself easy, greasy takeout. My brain was so busy, attending family events was an afterthought. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, my mind was grinding. I had no peace, was constantly on edge, and no matter how many hours I poured in, it was never enough. For the longest time, I dreamed that I'd go on a solo trip somewhere beautiful like Costa Rica, Italy, or Thailand. A deeper part of me craved solitude, simplicity,
nature, and exploration. I was 3 years into this business, and I still deprived myself of these long sought-out pleasures. I put my business first, and it led me on a path to spiritual bankruptcy. The cost of opening up the kimono. At the outset, I got my real estate license so I could be the agent on all the deals we were doing. I'd not only collect the commissions on those deals, but I'd be able to control the entire process from end to end. It seemed like a great idea at the time. Then something weird happened. It was November 2011, and I received a letter notifying me that 9 complaints were registered against me as a licensed real estate agent. I instantly felt both angry and ashamed. Angry because I was confident I'd done nothing wrong, and ashamed because I cared what people thought of me, almost to a fault. I couldn't stand the idea of someone unhappy with my service. Then, as I looked into it, I found it wasn't a past client, nor an agent that filed the complaints. Turns out, the investigations officer from the governing body of real estate agents in my province saw me on television as I proudly opened up the kimono of my entire business. He heard something he didn't like, and it led him to file the complaints himself. It was big enough that I even sat and answered to the entire board of my real estate brokerage, fearing they could be under fire as well. I felt forced into a state of having to defend myself against accusations that were all untrue. I felt exposed as they reviewed and analyzed the details of every customer interaction and document for our most recent deals. I was on edge and unable to fully operate as this unfolded. I felt paralyzed, raw, and in disbelief by what was happening. My attention was occupied with defending myself rather than working on the next deal. I'd have trouble being present with friends because I'd be worrying about how this investigation would turn out. But I'd done nothing wrong. So why was I filled with guilt and shame? I thought I knew my shit. For years, I thought I knew my shit. I was all in on real estate. It was who I was, my being, my passion. I thought it was my life path. Little did I know that the facade was starting to crumble. When the investigation began, I hit pause on bringing in any new business until I got to the bottom of what triggered the complaints and could avoid any future issues. Plus, my ego was bruised, and I was busy licking my wounds. I felt like a victim asking, "Why me?" This forced me to reflect, and I saw this as a sign from the universe. It had to mean something. I was in a rut for months, and eventually I began to see what I initially couldn't see. I sat in a state of restlessness for months as this investigation unfolded. One day, I received the news that the complaints were all dropped. They found no evidence to support the complaints. This provided a brief sense of relief for it to finally be behind me, but something within me still wasn't right. Fast forward to April 1st, 2012. Just a few months after the dust settled from the complaints and investigation. I opened my journal and wrote, "April Fools." Funny, because I'm the fool. I emptied my mental diarrhea onto the page. I wrote and wrote and wrote. Then something bigger than me took over, and like an out-of-body experience, I witnessed myself scribbling, "Maybe I just don't give a shit about this business anymore." Wow. I dropped my pen. I read that over again, baffled at what spilled out of me. It was like a drunk coming out of denial. What was just beneath the surface reared its ugly head. Once it came out, I couldn't ignore it. Truth just has a way higher vibration than the lies we tell ourselves. To me, this admission meant I could not go back to how things were. I couldn't keep impersonating an old version of myself. With this realization, I reached out to a few close friends and mentors for support. They confirmed what I already knew. I couldn't continue on this path. Hitting rock bottom. There was no way I could continue putting more time, energy, and attention into something my heart wasn't into. Life is short. If I wasn't living authentically, passionately, and purposefully, what's the point? I finally felt like I had conviction in my veins again. I was ready to be bold, have some difficult conversations, and make difficult decisions. I spoke with my business partner and our active investors, and I shared my decision. Within a week, I dismantled the very business I was once all in on. I finally felt a tiny bit lighter, but only for a brief moment. What I didn't anticipate was the aftermath of vaporizing a long-held identity. From those teen years with my nose buried in books, all the way up to this point, I'd been crafting this bright, shiny, and impressive persona. Then everything I thought I was and presented myself to be, poof, gone. There is nothing more excruciating than starting over when you thought you had it all figured out. I had no idea what I was going to do or be next. This was just the beginning. What came next was like falling into an abyss. Not only did I kill my only source of income, but I hadn't done a deal in months. I was burning through cash while I was introspecting. The 4 properties we were joint ventured in made a few $100 a month each, and only a fraction of that was mine. I went into $22,000 of credit card debt. I started falling behind. Eventually, it got to the point where my phone provider was constantly disconnecting my service for not paying my bills. I had a money problem and it was growing. I needed a job. I needed cash. Fast. But somehow, as illogical as it was, a part of me said, "No, Oliver, stick it out." That deeper part of me saw job hunting as a distraction from my self-discovery and reinvention process. It would block me from connecting with my purpose. I was nudged toward the foundational principles and tools that became the building blocks for my future. The timeless wisdom I've gained over the years has become even more valuable now. I was reminded of the importance of daily self-care, which I learned from my coach, Hans Phillips. Prioritizing self-care helped nudge me back to a place where I was filling my cup once again. These simple practices helped bring much needed structure and support as I traversed the unknown. Living into a new question. I took a strong stand in this process. I realized that yes, I had a money problem. But despite the money problem, I had a thought and question bugging me at the back of my mind, which was, could I prosper living in alignment with my highest self? That was the question I chose to live from. Yes, live from. From my self-study, I knew that the quality of my questions had way more power than merely seeking answers. This question began reshaping my lifestyle from a place of achieving my goals without betraying myself. It meant waking up earlier and taking greater ownership of the day. Simple things like sleeping well, quieting my mind through meditation, and filling my mind with inspiration. It meant focusing on being grateful for what I had, rather than ruminating on what I didn't have. It meant taking exquisite care of my body, with movement, healthy foods, and good rest. Slowly, I felt an expansion in my capacity. My energy moved away from trying to get rid of my challenges and towards expanding my capacity to be with my challenges. A new life optimization system. I kept going with my daily self-care practices. It was these simple rituals that brought me back to life. Things like waking up early, reading, and doing yoga were on the list, to name a few. I noticed having less tolerance for what drained me. I began to let go of what wasn't serving me or was robbing me of my energy. I distanced myself from people who were constantly negative, complained a lot, or were cynical about the big ideas I had. I quit interacting with them online, saw less of them in person, or at the very least, kept conversations with them extremely brief. I began releasing habits that were trashing my health and mindset. This meant less eating out, less weed, and less alcohol. It meant less social media, less news, and less comparing myself with others. I used to get sucked into the news each day, and it left me feeling helpless about the state of the world. So I finally shut it off to regain my agency. I had friends, bless their souls, who couldn't understand or empathize with the magnitude of what I was trying to accomplish in life. While I maintained connections with them, there became many aspects of my life I stopped sharing with them because that's where they began to drain me. This way of living and being was difficult at first. It was like using muscles that have atrophied. Prioritizing my self-care, cleaning up my integrity, and doing hard things each day were muscles that had gotten squishy over the years. For instance, part of my self-care was hitting the local hot yoga studio first thing in the morning. In the beginning, it felt like a tremendous amount of effort to show up on my mat each day. I'd fight against my inner chatter and my body's desire to stay cozy in bed. But as I battled and defeated this internal resistance, things got a bit easier. Eventually, I was showing up once and sometimes twice a day to move, breathe, and sweat in class. I'd come out feeling just a little bit more like myself again. Then quickly, that feeling would escape me as I returned to all my real-world circumstances. Bill collectors blowing up my phone, no gas in the car, and my parents thinking I'd thrown my life away. But I kept coming back to yoga. Then, on a seemingly regular day, I hopped into a class with one of my favorite teachers, Sony. Her voice, sequences, and energy were so healing with each class of hers I took. She empowered me to dig deep, become even more aware of my body, and connect with the moment. Then, in that 100-degree plus heat, as I was sweating, twisting, and wringing myself out, a wave of blissful peace washed over me. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Tears of joy and gratitude. It was like the inner dialogue telling me I'm a failure, a loser, and a piece of shit who couldn't make it as an entrepreneur was being purged out of my body. The self-doubt and self-criticism felt smaller and became so comical it made me smile. That spirit I had as a young boy who believed bigger for himself was re-emerging. It was one of those moments in my life where I felt like I got it. And all of it, life, made sense. Looking back, this was the moment when rock bottom was finally behind me, and I was beginning my ascent. At this moment, I got 3 breakthrough insights. 1. I am not my circumstances. 2. Joy, love, vitality, and authentic self-expression, aliveness, are always available no matter the circumstances. 3. At any moment, at any time, I always have the power to transform my life. This was massive. It shifted my entire being and inspired me to double down on this new foundation I was building. From breakdown to breakthrough. My daily self-care practices helped expand my capacity and helped me embody my higher self. It led to turning my biggest breakdown into the biggest breakthrough. Opportunities came flowing in from unexpected sources. Friends referred clients to me who needed help in real estate. Previously, my real estate license was strictly for my rent-to-own business. And now it was just something I had in my back pocket, a means to help me get to what was next. So these referrals arrived in perfect timing. I was feeling powerful again, needed the money, and these were some nicely sized paychecks knocking on my door. Thanks to my new foundation, I served, advised, and facilitated the home buying and selling process from a place of energy, ease, and flow. Even though I needed money, I felt so detached from the outcome, i.e., the commission check. My entire being didn't need anything. All the work I'd put into myself made me feel okay no matter how things turned out. I had a level of peace and patience in the process. Rather than trying to get somewhere, I was just present with each step I helped my clients with. Within 60 days, I went from closing down my company, hitting bottom, and having no identity, to prioritizing self-care, breakthroughs in yoga, and now $1.36 million of real estate firmed up for clients. That was $36,337.50 in commissions. Then another deal came in, and then another. Then just 30 days after that, I had a total of $51,163.04 in commissions on their way to my bank account. It was the most money I'd made in the shortest amount of time ever. As the deal started to close, I started settling my accounts and getting up to date with my bills. This brought back some financial peace. Having had lots of time for contemplation and now some money in my pocket, I quit waiting for tomorrow to give myself what I'd been longing for. And so I granted myself the one thing my soul's been begging for, a solo trip. Ready for takeoff. Just months before, I was shattered and broken. A few months later, thanks to my cousin who worked at a big airline, I was enjoying flying business class to Ireland. I enrolled in a week-long personal growth retreat called Brave Soul with one of my mentors, Philip McKernan. I landed there 3 days early with just my backpack. I'd walk, explore, pub crawl, and enjoy savoring the moment. Then that weekend, I arrived for the retreat, an experience that I still cherish to this day. The group that came together that week arrived from across the world to excavate the needs and desires of our souls. We stayed in thatched-roofed cottages, sprinkled along the coast of the Atlantic. It was an inviting space to ponder on deep questions that challenged our authenticity, shined a light on how much we'd been settling, and learned to take ownership of our gifts. This inner work was a roller coaster of emotion. I could be in tears as I opened up about my insecurities, or from seeing reflections of myself in another member's vulnerable process. At any moment, my heart could go from the heaviness of processing hurts from the past to swelling with inspiration for the future. It was refreshing seeing people from all walks of life, from 23 to 65 years old, from jobless to multimillionaire, all relating to each other's courage to reinvent and live with more meaning. The hard work of that week-long retreat felt like everything was on the line. I knew that if I didn't fully commit to this retreat and begin taking action on what I learned, all my realizations from the past few months would remain incomplete. It helped me question every choice I've made and the limiting stories I tell myself. As with many transformational experiences, I signed up for what I wanted, but got what I needed. What I wanted was validation of what I'd do next for work. What I needed was to learn to take ownership of my gifts. That week helped crystallize the path ahead. My happiest moment. After the retreat, I felt full and refreshed, but also tired. I refocused on enjoying the moment, hopped on a bus, ventured into small towns, and slept in cheap hostels. One morning, I was packing my things and overheard two fellow hostel guests mention Connemara Mountains in between their en français, the same place I was headed to next. I politely interrupted and asked which bus they were taking. Turns out they drove here from France, and I ended up with new friends who invited me to tag along for a bit of their road trip. That night, we cooked over a campfire, drank red wine from the bottle, laughed, and shared stories under the stars. As I watched the beautiful sun set into the horizon, it was then that I was overcome with the distinct sensation that I'd finally come home within my own self. I'll never forget this, as it was the first time I ever felt gratitude for every difficult and painful moment that led me here. I had a sense of pure presence, joy, and adventure. I didn't think that morning I'd end the day in a random town called Kong, with two people I just met, and I had no clue what the next day was going to bring. Yet I felt at peace. It was the first time I'd ever felt at home where my own 2 feet were. And that feeling has never left me since. As we parted ways the next day, I felt complete with my time in this green, majestic country, so I booked a flight to Italy. The moment I arrived, I was in heaven, indulging in pizza, pastries, espressos, and gelato each day. I visited and was in awe of the age-old Pantheon. I soaked in the awe-inspiring works of art at the Vatican. I visited the remnants of the Colosseum on a scorching hot day. Satisfied with my time away, my heart felt full. The moment I arrived back in Canada, I was ready to lean into what my heart wanted next. The reinvention. Over this period of inner reflection, I began connecting the dots. I recalled a constant theme in the feedback from friends I'd spend time with over coffee and on walks. They'd be so at ease confiding in me. They'd share their struggles, dreams, and insecurities so openly. I'd tell stories, share observations, and ask thought-provoking questions. Upon coming home to Canada, I had this openness in my soul, this yearning to hear people out who were facing similar problems and challenges. My capacity to help others had expanded to a whole new level. Questions like, where are you not fully showing up? And how happy are you really? Were enough to pierce their armor and spark hours-long conversations. Even before the chaos of that investigation and burnout ensued, I had a friend who asked that I mentor and help him with starting his own rent-to-own business. We'd meet every week, and I'd have a blast showing him the ropes, exposing his blind spots, and seeing his progress. It was a chance to help someone who I saw myself in. I shared lessons that I learned the hard way. Things like being stuck in analysis paralysis, and how much time and energy it costs. This helped him avoid overthinking and get in action each week. For perspective, my first deal took me 6 months. He ended up doing his first deal within 4 weeks. I remembered how helping him with my experiences and insights felt so gratifying. Then there's the work I'd done with coaches and mentors over the years. Wise humans and programs that helped me lose weight, expand my mind, reach for new heights, and get to know myself. These influences and their teachings hit me at such a core level. I dwell on their stories, insights, and perspectives effortlessly. I'd recite their quotes and teachings at will. I felt like I was somehow part of carrying the torch. Insights like, quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," end quote, by Socrates were a grounding force reminding me that self-knowledge is foundational. The more I dove into the work of self-inquiry, the more clearly I saw myself. The more clearly I saw myself, the more quickly I could adjust my mindset and behaviors to produce the results I wanted. Similarly, Tony Robbins' teaching, quote, "Change happens when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same," end quote, was catalyzing. It's a reminder to sit with and feel how much it's costing me to stay where I am versus making a change. A principle that served me and so many clients over the years. That time I spent away felt like a celebration of the transformation I'd gone through. Upon its completion, it solidified what I'd been leaning into next. So the moment I got home from my trip, I saw it as a new beginning. It was then that I made 2 important decisions. As I reflected on how I've had friends leave conversations with me feeling inspired and empowered, I recalled how they'd say things like, "You'd be such a great coach," and "You should be charging money for this." The first thing I declared was, I am now a coach. Naturally, I even announced it on Facebook. That friend I helped start his rent-to-own business was the first to reply. He signed up as my first paid coaching client and worked with me in a year-long program. I was still in the discovery process, not yet fully knowing what this all meant. All I knew was I was excited, felt aligned, and wanted to serve as a guide for people just like me. Entrepreneurs and business owners who've succeeded but were spiritually bankrupt. Ones who accomplish incredible goals, look around and wonder, is this it? I wanted to help them unlock purpose, meaning, and impact. I wanted to help people create peaceful prosperity for themselves and their families. The second thing I declared was, I'm signing up for yoga teacher training. This practice reconnected my body with my mind and brought me greater presence and awareness. I had a huge appetite for the wealth of wisdom in yoga and its Eastern philosophical foundation. I saw the power of yoga and how it can catalyze personal growth and transformation for my future students as it had for me. This past decade has been an outgrowth of those 2 important decisions. For over 10 years, I've built a career out of helping empower and transform people in 2 ways, as a coach and as a yoga teacher. This is the context I'm coming from when providing you with the insights, principles, and tools in this book. If I hadn't gone through all these experiences and rediscovered myself, I wouldn't be the guy writing this book right now. I would have never built a record of value with all the clients I've worked with over the past 10 years. Clients who've taken back their lives, claimed their freedom, and tapped into their aliveness. And I'm so damn excited that you get to be on this journey too.
All right, there you have it, the opening of my book, The Daily Prosperity Method. I'm so grateful that you took the time to tune into the podcast today, and I hope that you enjoyed this free sample of the book. If you are interested in grabbing a copy for yourself, the digital and audiobook are available at olivermanalese.com/DPM. That's olivermanalese.com/DPM. I would be really grateful for you to be one of my readers, and I can't wait for you to dig in. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.